Techbusters proudly brought to you by Ericsson.
Good evening and welcome to Techbusters, your common sense guide to technology. Well, I'm reading my common sense guide to technology in this month's edition of Stuff magazine. Some interesting gadgets which we'll share. Some on the show. We'll talk about the technologies that are changing your world. Great addition, Mr. Shapshak, and I see you've gone with that WeChat thing again, eh?
Indeed, yeah, it's a really great service. So you can buy stuff straight out of the magazine using WeChat. You scan a QR code, 50% discount on everything, and it'll be delivered the next day to your house.
Why would I want to buy stuff from WeChat if I'm holding stuff in my hands?
Don't get semantic.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But it's a great service. It's a really great service. We'll talk about it later. But in the meantime, remember to join in the conversation on Twitter by using the hashtag Techbusters or by following @TechbustersSA. But before we do anything, let's take a look at what's coming up tonight.
Tonight on Techbusters, Toby jets off to Prague to visit Showmax's programming hub. And Aki chats to Mark Walker from the IDC about smart cities, urbanisation and connecting all our citizens. We keep you connected. Tonight on Techbusters.
There it is, the iPhone 7, and controversially as always, Apple's new launch of its premium device has attracted a whole bunch of attention, and interestingly, for the first time, not for a new feature that it's launched, but for an old feature that it's left out. I mean, who would have known the headphone jack is so sentimental?
I know, people are very attached to their cords, you know. But here's the thing, I get where Apple is going. I mean, they didn't knock the lights out with this particular launch. If you look at the comments, people are saying, well, it's okay. But the reality is that if you have an existing Apple device, you're going to be happy with this one and you're going to upgrade. The other two interesting things for me that stood out were the cameras. The cameras are really good. They've improved on the screen. And if you think of that A10 chip that's inside there, that there are 3.3 trillion little bits of technology inside that processor, transistors. I mean, it's just kind of mind-blowing. Just when you think about that 10 years ago, we were nowhere even near there. They didn't even dream of this.
We were in the mere millions.
No, it's astonishing when you look at Moore's Law and where we are today. And the good thing that's come out of this for me is that they've ditched 16 gigs. They've just said bottom range phones are going to start at 32.
Really, at last, because the problem is
you can't update anything.
You can't. It's non-functional.
It's like one video for you.
But I think for me, the biggest new feature on the iPhone and a whole bunch of other smartphones is that they are waterproof. You and I saw that technology a few years ago at CES, where they actually coat, they don't try and seal the outside of the phone, they coat the circuit boards with a polymer that keeps the water from getting in. So, you know, if water gets into the headphone jack or the speakers or whatever, there's a sealant. And that's a big leap forward because, you know, people always drop their phone in the bath or...
Well, absolutely, Toby. And you know, the testament is the 1 billion phones that Apple has sold so far. So we look forward to what next year is going to bring to us.
I thought you were going to say the testament is as if it's easy enough for Aki Anastasia to use it. Anybody could.
But don't you love how Tim Cook goes, this is the best iPhone we've ever made. You're not going to launch something and say this is the worst iPhone we've ever made, are you?
This is the second best iPhone we've ever made. We thought the 3GS was really groundbreaking. This is just almost close. It's not going to happen, right?
No. Hey, what a fascinating year it's been, and it's quite difficult to believe that Showmax, the streaming service born here in South Africa, is a year old. And in just 1 year, the service has expanded to 65 countries, over 10 million views. When you look back in 1 year, that's quite an extraordinary impact to make in a market that's very competitive and dominated by a company called Netflix.
Indeed, indeed, and they're showing really good signs. So I went to see what Showmax is doing with their programming hub, which is based in Prague, just outside of Prague, actually 30 kilometers away. And the fascinating thing is that they are selling a distributed service, but they are themselves a distributed company with headquarters in Amsterdam, an office in Johannesburg, one office in Prague, the other in Berun, this little town, where this remarkable legend of the Czech programming industry, Antonín Král, just spoke me through about the fascinating way that they program for Prague using service-orientated architecture. It's quite a thing that this company is an African company essentially, and yet the development house is here in Prague, but it's something that really works for the business, isn't it?
Absolutely, because I mean, we are active in Africa, but we are pretty distributed, right? We have the customers all around the Africa, and we have the distributed company as well, so we embrace the distribution on all places.
And it essentially helps because you are a web-based company, and you use a whole bunch of web-based technologies that anyone, whether they're in the office here or in Johannesburg, could use with as much ease.
Absolutely, we are internet-based. That's absolutely true. On the other side, we embrace the differences between different localities, different needs of different markets. So we understand that South Africans have different needs than Kenyans or Nigerians, for example. And we can embrace it because we are looking at it from the other side, right? We have different needs than the others as well. So we don't try to bring you the same solution which fits everybody.
One of the things I find really interesting about the Eastern Bloc is that because you couldn't get the kinds of things the West could, you're really good at solving problems and fixing old technology. It's very akin to the way people innovate and solve problems in Africa. Tell us just about how this ethos has come through in the way you design software.
It works all the time because you are trying to achieve a lot of stuff without not necessarily a lot of resources. You are trying to minimize the resources needed and try the optimal solutions. And we are active in the markets where, you have to work with the things like a battery life on your device, right? Because you don't necessarily have a resource to actually charge it all the day. The same is true on the data, because we are data intensive application, right? We are streaming the video towards you. And for us, it's very important to actually cut that cost as well, or cut that resource as well, and bring you the same quality of the video with less data needed for you to actually consume the video.
And this service-orientated architecture, it isn't new, but the way you are doing it is pretty novel.
It's something what everybody who is really huge on the internet uses, like Google's, Facebook's, and the others. And what we do probably slightly differently is that we bring it to the places where you would not find or think about it, right? We distribute the nodes within the close proximity to our users in Kenya, for example, in South Africa, Nigeria, etc., to actually again optimize the network costs for you, because when you are paying for the data transfers, a lot of stuff, or the huge part of the cost, is on international traffic.
And it's all about user experience. You want your customer to be really thrilled with the video that they're getting.
Oh, absolutely. If you just import, the service from, for example, Europe, the round trip time would be, half a second or quarter of a second. You have to wait that time to actually get a response from us. If you deploy the services to your operator or next to your operator, we can serve you in a much quicker way.
And Showmax recently celebrated its first year. This is quite a milestone, and there's a lot of stuff that people have been watching. I'm a geek, and I'm very pleased to hear that it's a lot of the Big Bang Theory, but it's a lot of things you wouldn't expect either.
We have a lot of stuff from Hollywood. We have a lot of local content, and people like both of them. So that's very encouraging for us, because it's not only about the Hollywood; it's about the local production as well. From the Hollywood titles, you can see a lot of things like Criminal Mind or True Detective, and these kind of shows are doing really well. We just added Mr. Robot, which is something what is going resonate with you as a geek, I guess.
So people have watched 10 million views. That's nearly 700 years of binge watching. That's a really good sign about how robust your system is, isn't it?
Yeah, we think so, and I think we again can thank to our distributed architecture that, I mean, the failures happens, right, because we are losing the servers, we are losing the connectivity, but because we are distributed around the globe, we are able to still serve the customers.
Well, there you have it. Showmax, a distributed company that is distributed in itself with its production and development house here in the Czech Republic, just outside Prague.
Well, here's a very interesting company. Muni Boga is the CEO and founder of a company called KudosNow.com. Welcome to the studio. What exactly does your company do? If I meet you in the street, because it's such a unique concept, I can't explain it in an introduction. Yeah. What do you guys do?
Basically what we do is we do employee engagement with a focus on employee recognition.
Right.
In other words, when you have people inside of your organization, how do you recognize them and appreciate them for the jobs that they do within the organization?
It's quite interesting because this has now become a big thing. We see this with a company like Discovery locally, who who reward their members if they go to gym, if they drive properly. You get kudos by getting a smoothie or you're getting a coffee. Is it the same kind of thing that you work well within the environment, your company recognizes you, and here's your reward?
Absolutely. The interesting difference is that we focus on the recognition side of things.
Yes.
So if you look at the landscape, there's recognition and rewards.
Yes.
And what we do is we tend to focus on what intrinsically motivates individuals. In other words, individuals inside of an organization, when they're connected to the organization, they want to do what fulfills themselves and what actually fulfills the end goal of the organization itself.
Is there a massive difference between recognition and actually rewarding people?
Yeah, there absolutely is. So a lot of research that's out there actually points to the fact that people are intrinsically motivated, right? If it drives the right behaviors. It doesn't mean that you can't use rewards at all. Rewards can absolutely be supplemental. But when it comes to kudos, what we do is we focus on a couple of different elements. So when I send you a kudos message, first of all, it can be on our web application or mobile applications, or one of our integrations. But there's basically a level of performance that's associated to it. So maybe I give you a good job or an exceptional. And then in addition to that, I tag or associate corporate values and behaviors to that message. So perhaps what you're working on is strategic and you're a great communicator. I will attach those particular tags to it, or values or behaviors. And effectively at the end of the day, those pieces of information start creating a digital reputation for you inside of the organization. In other words, who are my key players and how can I promote my key players and identify them? Right? Okay. So at the end of the day, a reward will do something. But when you truly recognize them for performance and how they're doing within the organization, you can actually pick out the key employees that you want to promote inside the organization. So at the end of the day, it's driving their career.
Now, explain to us the technology. Where does the technology fit into KudosNow.com?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's a web application as well as mobile applications and a series of integrations. There's two parts to it. So there's a peer-to-peer piece. In other words, anybody in the organization can actually recognize another person, whether it be a fellow employee or a manager. And then there is another piece, which is manager to employee. So that's more of a top-down approach. It's funny that people need both, right? They need to be recognized by their peers, but they also need to be heard and understood by their managers, right? So when managers actually do it, it's for levels of appreciation or certification. So it stands out a little bit more than the peer-to-peer piece.
I mean, which kind of companies are using this right now? What kind of results have you got to quantify that there's actually a trend that's developing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're actually in 80 different countries now. So we started about 5 years ago. Over the course of that time, we're in organizations of all sizes, from 100 employees all the way up to 10, 15,000 employees. Some company here locally is, of course, MTN Group.
Yes.
And so we're in the entire group, so all the different opcos. And so it's interesting because, some companies come to us because they are trying to drive engagement initiatives or drive morale within the organization. And other companies, like MTN as an example, they already embrace a culture of recognition internally. And so when we look at organizations, it's the engagement levels and the appreciation levels that we begin to look at, and the values that are aligning. So in other words, in an organization at the end of Q4, what are the values and the behaviors that I want to be driven inside of my organization? Because I'm at the year end, right? And so perhaps I want people to be driven more towards meeting our sales targets, as an example.
Yes.
But maybe at the beginning of the year, it's more about marketing and promotion. Whatever you are trying to drive inside the organization, that's how you align it.
How do you make money very quickly?
So it's a per seat user licensing. It's monthly. It's anywhere from $3 to $5 per user per month.
Thanks for joining us and good luck. 80 countries, eh?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
We're here in the heart of Sandton and we're attending a discussion that's been held here by EMC and a white paper presented by IDC. And this is all about urbanization. It's about smart cities. It's about enabling the connectivity to the citizens, electronic services, connecting cameras, connecting water meters, making cities smart, adding a nervous system to a city. And that's essentially what a smart city is all about and what this discussion today is all about in Sandton. The most fascinating insight was the amount of urbanization that is taking place not only in this country, but this is going on globally.
Yes, if we look at the world today, we're talking about a massive urbanization. Firstly, in 2050, we're going to have about 70% of the world urbanized, compared to 54% in 2014. But what's more important is that if you look at 90% of the urbanization will take place in Africa and Asia. And we in South Africa, we're going to have about 80% of our people urbanized in 2050. So we have to find a different way for us to be able to service those people, because with the existing resources and the growth in urbanization, we won't be able to do it.
Well, what are the 4 key elements that make a successful smart city? You touched on them, which I found really interesting.
Well, firstly, I said that what you should be looking at is there are 4 forces that are driving this, right? So firstly, we've got big data, we've got mobile computing, we've got cloud, and social media. So those 4 forces are fundamental changes the way we work, live, play, and learn. And what's happening is that they are digitizing every aspect of our lives. And what's important is for cities to understand that and be able to harness that power and create an environment where digital citizens can feel better to live in that city and therefore not move anywhere else.
And this whole process of digitizing and making cities smarter, it's obviously an expensive process, but what kind of steps do cities need to take to make this happen and make it a reality? Because ultimately, if cities do not become smart, they're simply going to fail, right?
Absolutely, they will fail. So there's a study that was done by IDC, and they produced a white paper that we will share with most of the cities. And they divide the stages or the maturity into 5 stages. The first one that people do, which is where most of us are or slightly more, is where we have point solutions, right? So there's a problem, we find a solution for it. We need to move slightly beyond that. And today, there are some cities in South Africa that have vision of 2050, 2040, etc., which is a smart city vision. And what we want to do is to work with them to identify where they are in the maturity model and therefore create steps of how they can reach their vision. It's not something that we can do overnight. It's going to take a long time, but we require it because the resources available are not going to be enough for everybody in the cities.
I mean, you highlighted 2 great projects, the one in the Western Cape with the fibre, and the area which you come from, which is Soshanguve, north of Pretoria, and the great work that Mayor Ramaphosa has done with, creating this incredible Wi-Fi hotspot across the province. I mean, what kind of feedback do you have from your family and friends that are still living out in Soshanguve, the difference that Wi-Fi, a simple thing like Wi-Fi, has made to their lives?
And it's amazing that something that most of us in cities or even suburbs take for granted, that for them has meant a serious impact that they can have access to the internet, impact that they can have do some of their work on the internet, etc. So things that you take for granted that the young people really find as a value for them to be part of this global society. So that's one part I have seen. The second one, it's so I went to visit the Department of Health in the Western Cape, and I was fascinated by how the fiber project is going, right? Where they are connecting all the departments, connecting all the hospitals and clinics, and connecting the schools. That for me, it's a platform upon which they can build digital services for citizens of the Western Cape.
I'm joined by Mark Walker from IDC. Tell us about the latest research you've done. It's a white paper that's been commissioned. What is the interesting results that have come out of this white paper?
Okay, it's been very interesting. Smart cities are a reality. The concept of a smart city is you speak to 10 people, you're going to get 15 answers. But reality is that smart cities are very focused cities that are using technology as a means to facilitate, grow, and expand on economic, social, and political imperatives.
And I mean the massive benefits of making your city smart, right? Because it becomes more agile and you become a lot more efficient.
Absolutely. The efficiency is the first driver. You're going to get a lot of efficiency. That's going to save costs, going to be more efficient in delivering services. But more importantly, it creates value through innovation. And that innovation means new business streams, new opportunities for business to be developed, and new ways to service and look after the citizens.
How do we in South Africa compare to other countries? And can you highlight some smart cities that you've seen around the world that have really wowed you?
Certainly. The IDC has developed a model. It's called a maturity scape, where we've assigned 5 stages to how mature a city is in terms of its usage of technology to become smart. In South Africa, in the South African context, we're somewhere between stage 1 and stage 2. There's a 5-stage scale. Stage 1 is very much an ad hoc, project-based type implementations, where it goes up to stage 5, where no city in the world is really there yet, some teetering on the edge. And the examples of some cities that are way out there already, or very, very well progressed, cities like Dubai in the Middle East, cities like Singapore in the Far East, where there's a lot of work done. Also some cities in Europe, where Barcelona, for instance, comes to mind, where a lot of technology has been used to harness the power of innovation and come with economic benefit for the people that live in those cities.
Great chatting to you. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Aki.
Wow.
These people have just seen color for the first time.
Is that working?
1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women have some form of color blindness. Instead of the world looking like this, it appears to look more like this. But one Berkeley-based company created a pair of glasses that can change that.
When I hand a pair of glasses to someone who's color deficient and they put them on and their mouth opens up and they just can barely speak for a minute.
Holy crap.
That is purple.
What? That is the most beautiful thing ever. This is my new favorite flower.
I get goosebumps, and that's the thrill for me, and it gets me back in the lab.
Don McPherson is a glass scientist. About a decade ago, he was making protective glasses for laser surgery when he made a surprising discovery.
I found out that surgeons were stealing the glasses and using them as sunglasses. And I was like, that could be pretty cool. And one of the things I noticed immediately is they made the world look very colorful, saturated. I was playing at an ultimate frisbee tournament and my friend borrowed my glasses and said, this is a quote, he said, "Dude, I can see the cones." And he was referring to the fluorescent orange cones that define the field. And I'm thinking, those are really bright. How could he not see that?
In fact, confusing red and green tones is one of the most common types of colorblindness. Don McPherson had a new mission, and after years of research, he launched Enchroma. They make sunglasses and indoor lenses that help people see color.
If you are color deficient, you might confuse that with that. At the same time, you might confuse that with that. Our glasses create a separation between photopigments simply by blocking certain wavelengths of light that would be the most confused wavelengths for somebody who's color deficient.
Enchroma has sold 30,000 glasses around the world.
Wow. I think that's the most important part, understanding what you were missing before. My favorite color used to be blue, now it's red. Without a doubt, it is red. Red is just such an intense and wonderful color.
If you think about a set of glasses, I didn't get glasses until I was 13. I had no idea, sitting at a kid in a schoolroom, you could even see the board. I had no idea. It didn't occur to me that the teacher was making helpful notes and explaining the maths problems you had to solve. Glasses can truly change your life, and the technology behind them is just exponentially more and more interesting. Zeiss do this thing where they pinpoint it exactly so that the frame lines up to the way your eyes use. I mean, that's a very interesting use of technology to make people's lives better, but you seldom hear about it.
No, and then when you go for the fitting, you know, they got a special device that actually follows your eye, you know, your cornea, and it really positions it exactly where it's supposed to be. But yeah,
is that an intelligence test?
That as well, which I failed. But you know, at school, you talk about glasses at school, and this is why it's so important, guys. If you've got kids, make sure you go and get them for their eyes tested. You know, I only got glasses when I was 20 years old. And at school, I used to sit like this, look at the blackboard like this. I couldn't see properly. I used to get headaches. I don't understand why they didn't pick it up. You know, I failed the grade because I couldn't see. I couldn't see properly.
Yeah. But and not because you spent all your time at 702 helping John Burks. You know, that's, people don't know that's Aki's beginning in this. He has had an illustrious career in radio, working for, amongst others, the great John Burks. He was a brilliant mimic who used to mimic a whole bunch of people, including Nelson Mandela. And that might have been the reason someone didn't pass their year, not that their eyesight was any good. But anyway, moving along.
Swiftly along. Lovely of you to join us on the show tonight. And it has been a great pleasure for you to be on the Techbusters. And we thank you. Good night.
Love your work, big boy.